It's time for the 420 Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Transcripts of 420 Radio News are available daily on our website at 420radio.org. Now, here's Priscilla Simon.
Hi folks, this is your 420 Radio News for Monday, June 23rd, 2014. The head of the campaign to place two initiatives on the November ballot to legalize marijuana in Oregon has thrown in the towel. Paul Stanford, head of the campaign for the restoration and regulation of hemp, made the announcement Friday on his television show, Cannabis Common Sense. Stanford said he'd raised 50,000 signatures for each measure, but would not have the 87,213 signatures needed for his Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, or OCTA, or the 116,284 signatures needed for his Help End Marijuana Prohibition, or hemp, constitutional amendment by the July 3rd deadline. Stanford placed OCTA on the 2012 ballot and failed on Election Day, which is 46.5% of the vote. Big national funders would not back Stanford then, and they preferred New Approach Oregon's campaign this time around. I liked our initiatives better, Stanford said in his video, quote, but the big multimillionaire funders didn't.
And that begs the question, if they didn't, why did you move forward with all the time and effort to place redundant initiatives on the ballot? I just don't understand the logic behind this. After failing in 2012, after realizing, hey, even though I did have the money to put this on the ballot afterwards, I didn't have any money to do any campaigning with it, and it failed, why then move forward 2 years later and try to do the exact same thing, but twice as hard by doing it with two amendments? And gee, realizing now, 10 days before the July 3rd deadline, that it didn't have a shot in hell, when people had been saying that earlier, way earlier, even when it was first committed. I just don't understand the logic that says, hey, look, there's going to be big multimillionaire funders going with New Approach Oregon, and they're going to legalize 8 ounces. But gosh, that's not good enough. Let's take all of our effort. Let's take all our money. Let's take all our volunteers and work on something else that won't get big signature funders, that won't get any big national support. And if it did make the ballot, you'd have to assume that the New Approach would also have made the ballot. And given voters 2 shots at voting at it, do you think more people would have chosen 8 ounces or more would have chosen 24? The only logic going into this would have been, we can get on the ballot and we can win, and the other one that's got the multimillionaire funders either won't make the ballot, or if it does make it, we'll beat it. That would be the only logic that would dictate moving forward with an independent grassroots ballot initiative when you had one that's being run by the pros that had big money coming in, and this was well known way ahead of time. This is just, of those 50,000 signatures, I can't think of how many thousands of them might have gone to the other initiative and given it even more of a cushion to make the ballot. How many more of those volunteers would have out there been canvassing people? How many fewer Oregonians would have been confused by the prospect of now, which one is this? Which legalization of this? How many spoiled signatures made it to the New Approach ballot because of people not recognizing, oh, which one did I sign? I must have signed the other one. Maybe I should sign this one, and accidentally signing the same one twice. There was never any good reason to move forward with OCTA or hemp in the face of New Approach Oregon and professionals coming in to run a campaign, and I just hope so greatly that this one finally passes and we can put Paul Stanford's attempt at legalizing long in the past where they belong.
The first recreational pot shops are set to open next week in Washington State, but the few shops that open will be struggling to meet consumer demand. While 334 pot shops can be licensed statewide, only about a dozen will be ready to open in the first week of July. The Washington State Liquor Control Board must first inspect the shops, and their limited staff will delay the rollout of many of the licensed retail facilities. Those that do open may face a supply crunch. Only 61 of the 2,554 applications for grower licenses have been approved by the board, and most of those licenses were approved recently enough that they won't have any legal marijuana to sell in the stores next week. Some stores are admitting that they will not have any product until August, and others are bidding up the price of what little marijuana will be available.
Yeah, this is going to be the difficulty rolling out Washington State's legalization. In fact, Dave Rines from the Marijuana Business Association was quoted in one of these stories about how they're setting this up for the first time. This is all brand new. Nobody has set up a retail recreational marijuana system from scratch ever before. Colorado's got the advantage of having just kind of attaching it to the existing medical system, right? So they already knew about, brick and mortar and how it's supposed to be inspected and how do we license the bud tenders and how does it get taxed. All that stuff's already been worked out in Colorado. In Washington State, aside from the wink, wink, nudge, nudge dispensaries that are out there, there has never been retail marijuana in Washington State. So trying this from the ground up, they're bound to make a whole bunch of mistakes. And we're going to see the results of some of those mistakes. The first of one being not getting the growers licensed well in advance of the retail shops opening. When these few retail shops open, I think there's going to be 2 in Spokane that are going to open, maybe a few in Seattle, maybe a couple in Clark County. When these few shops open and the first few customers come in and they end up having to buy weed that's way overpriced just from the scarcity of the legal growers, and then way overtaxed on top of that. And those first few receipts start hitting the news media. Oh, Washington State started selling weed. Here's a guy with his receipt. And people around the country see $60 or $80 or $100 for an eighth. They're going to say, oh my God, I don't want legalization. Look how expensive it makes the weed. Now, of course, those prices will come down once more of the growers get online, once more of the pot shops open up. But the first impression of Washington's legalized weed is going to be prices out of control. And we got to make sure that people understand in the few weeks and few months that will follow after that the prices are going to go down, and they're really going to go down once Oregon passes our legalization and forces Washington to have to reevaluate those really high taxes.
Right on. A North Dakota hemp activist was stopped at the Canadian border, and his 350 pounds of hemp seeds were seized by customs. Tom McLean has appealed to his congressman to intervene in the situation, pointing out that the latest federal farm bill grants allow states to proceed with industrial hemp research and development. North Dakota is one of the 15 U.S. states with laws allowing the production of industrial hemp. A spokesperson for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement said, quote, "The shipment is currently undergoing scientific evaluation, as hemp seeds can look much like marijuana seeds," end quote. This seizure of non-psychoactive hemp seeds is the second such case we've reported on. The first required the state of Kentucky to sue the federal government for the return of hemp seeds imported from Italy. Despite the Farm Bill's hemp amendment, those wishing to import hemp seeds must still get permission from the DEA, a process that is hindering further development in the industry.
Yeah, I've always said it's just silly that the Drug Enforcement Administration bans the production of a non-drug crop. I guess it's getting held up at customs. Well, we can't. You got 7 bags of 350 pounds of seeds here, and well, they might be legit hemp, legit marijuana seeds. They might not be hemp seeds. They might be marijuana seeds. So we got to test them. Really? Are they going to test all 350 pounds? Are they going to take a sample from each bag to test it? I mean, really, are they going to test the whole damn thing? Because if the guy was trying to import, legit marijuana seeds, psychoactive seeds, you could hide some of that in one of the bags, couldn't you? I mean, this is how silly marijuana prohibition gets. It gets to the point where you can't even grow a non-drug crop because we're trying so hard to stop its drug cousin. This is why we need to legalize marijuana, euphoric marijuana, THC marijuana for all adults, for all purposes, even for home grow, so we can stop this silly worrying about whether a seed is going to produce hemp or whether it's going to produce marijuana.
The North Carolina Senate is expected this week to debate the Hope for Haley and Friends bill that would make the Cargill state the 12th to pass CBD-only medical marijuana legislation. Last Thursday, the bill was rushed through committees after fears it would be placed on hold until the next session, passing the full House on a 111-2 vote. The bill would only allow use of CBD oil that is less than 0.3% THC and would be restricted to children with epilepsy who do not respond to any other treatment. The bill would also allow 3 university research hospitals, Duke, UNC Chapel Hill, and Wake Forest, to participate in clinical trials of CBD.
Well, I've already kind of gone off on these CBD-only bills, and, North Carolina's is especially silly in that it mandates 10% CBD to 0.3% THC. That's a ratio of 34 to 1. That's damn hard to find, even in Colorado. But the reason why they've got this 0.3% THC limit actually kind of references back to our previous story on industrial hemp. Industrial hemp is defined as any sort of hemp plant or hemp seed that contains less than 0.3% THC. The reason the industry settled on that is that's the little amount that you would need. Anything more than that, I should say, could trigger a positive on a drug test. So that's why they're considering it at 0.3%, even though you could have as high as 1 or even 2% THC in these oils and not really get anyone high. It's not about getting anyone high. It's about maintaining the drug testing industry's ability to get those people with more than the 0.3% THC in the substances they're ingesting.
A business-to-business magazine publisher has learned that even in a state where cannabis is legal, the mere word marijuana can threaten your bank account. Greg James publishes Marijuana Venture and learned that Wells Fargo Bank would not take any deposits from the magazine's publishing company. Marijuana Venture is no dope magazine, explains James, who says, quote, "We are simply running stories on how to navigate the industry and promoting best-of-breed business practices," end quote. A spokesperson for Wells Fargo explained that the federally regulated bank has, quote, "a long-standing policy of not banking marijuana-related businesses whose activities violate federal law," end quote. But James's magazine doesn't violate any federal laws, as it only reports on marijuana businesses and doesn't promote marijuana use or advertise marijuana sales.
Yeah, this is where we start to get into those, civil rights that were denied just because it's marijuana we're talking about here. This is in Washington State, and the guy has a business account with the Puget Sound Bank, but he was running his running his checks through another Wells Fargo branch for the distribution, and Wells Fargo is the one that said, no, we can't take this. But again, they're not violating federal law in any way. They don't advertise marijuana. They don't advertise marijuana for sale. They don't promote the use of marijuana in any way. This is a business-to-business magazine. This is like where to buy resealable containers, and here's software for sale for tracking seeds, and here's a place to buy security cameras for your dispensary, right? None of this stuff's illegal that we're talking about, but because it's got the word marijuana in it, all those white-collar suit and tie guys at the bank freak out and think that they're going to be sued or attacked, which is really surprising to me that the bankers can destroy the economy without even a single consideration. But you throw the word marijuana in there, oh, they all freak out. Hey folks, it's 420 in Denver, Colorado, America's cannabis capital, and our own Priscilla Simon must attend to a special 420 safety meeting. I hope you do too. Priscilla, thanks for the news. We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, bye.
When we come back, we go behind the headlines, taking a look at impaired driving surveys in Washington State. Stay tuned. 420 Radio, your ticket to the High Times Canada.